Hey everybody, Scott Gulbransen with Sportsnaut. With today's interview, we're going to cap off the NFL season, tie it up with a bow, if you will. And to do that, we're joined by Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post. You can follow him up on x.com at R-Y Dunleavy. He covers the NFL, the Jets, the Giants, pretty much anything going on in the area. Also, I just want to point this out, Ryan. You are a big Twilight Zone fan, as am I. You've watched all the episodes. I have as well. I've got my kids hooked on it. And, you know, to me, a couple of the episodes, To Serve Man, Time Enough at Last, and The Lonely, my favorite 3 episodes. How about you?
You hit on some good ones. To Serve Man is certainly there. One of my sleeper favorites is The Obsolete Man.
Oh, yes.
With Burgess Meredith, where they judge him to be obsolete at the end. And, you know, great twist. I like all the ones with a great twist. And then the name of it is escaping me right now, but the one in the diner.
Oh, yes.
I don't know why. With A Real Martian, Please Stand Up. That's the name.
Well, yes.
Those are my 3 favorite.
Good stuff. And I mean, Rod Serling was such a great writer. And it's amazing, too, how many pieces of those episodes, as crazy as they could be, so many of them, there's still things that are relevant culturally now.
Way ahead of his time. Yep, way ahead.
Yes, way ahead of his time. All right, we're going to get back to football, not Twilight Zone.
I mean, if you want, I'll just do a whole podcast on the Twilight Zone, because I got a million thoughts on that. Yeah.
Yes, we could do it. I'm just proud that my kids, you know, from my oldest, from 25 all the way down to 14, they don't say, why is it in black and white? No, they want to watch it, and they get it. So we're passing it on to the next generation, my friend. Okay, NFL season, we're not going to recap the whole Super Bowl, Ryan, but I just want to get your kind of take on it. I mean, look, the Chiefs did what they did. You look at the numbers here. If you look at the Chiefs teams over the years, this one ranks something like 28th in the history of their teams when you score it out by scoring and what they've done, record, all that stuff. But they still go into Las Vegas. They still beat Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. When you look at this, of course, all the talk about Dynasty, right? And those words can be tossed around. How we define them can be different. But when you look at this Chiefs team and what they're doing and what they're able to do as they move forward into next season, do you see this machine of theirs stopping anytime soon?
Not if Andy Reid's the coach and Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. I mean, eventually it's going to change over time, right? We saw that with the Patriots dynasty. People forget the Patriots went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. They basically won 3, and then a whole new era won another 3, but it's considered a dynasty because the quarterback and the coach were still there for the whole 20 years. But like, they went from winning one with like winning 3 with like the Troy Browns and the Deion Branches to like the Julian Edelmans and the Gronkowskis and those guys. So it's really 2 different worlds. As long as the coach and as long as the quarterback are there, they're going to be, if not the favorite, then one of the 3 favorites every single year. I won't pick against them. I know that. I would, if you ask me right now who's going to win next year's Super Bowl, I'm going to pick the Chiefs because I don't know what else they need to prove to you. They proved they can win on the road. They proved they can win as underdogs. They proved they can win coming from behind. They proved they can outscore you. They proved they can win playing with defense. I mean, maybe the craziest thing about this year's Chiefs is it wasn't the Tyreek Hill, throw the ball all around, Travis Kelce, unbelievable year, Mahomes, backwards throws over his heads. This was just like Mahomes playing to his team's strengths and really winning with defense, which is like almost scary.
Well, and it's a great point you bring up there, too, because I saw a piece, and I forgot who wrote it, but right after the game, somebody wrote that, Patrick Mahomes, if you think about, he was the gunslinger, he was throwing the ball, all the crazy stuff we saw early on, especially that first Super Bowl and even into last year with that offense, as you talked about with Tyreek Hill and Kelce at his prime, he changed his approach, right? The word game or the term game manager to me gets a bad rap, right? People look at it as a negative. I don't. Patrick Mahomes this year kind of adjusted his style to fit exactly what you said, which was, hey, we don't have the offense we've had in the past, so I got to start dishing the ball off in little spots and kind of dinking and dunking it and let the defense do the job. And, man, it worked. And I agree with you. I can't pick anybody else next year. When you look at the AFC, though, interesting point. I saw Louis Riddick from ESPN say the other day that really the only other quarterback and team that he thinks could mentally and sort of from a competitive standpoint, be there with the Chiefs is Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But Joe Burrow has trouble staying healthy. What do you think about the Bengals? Are they really the team, or is he the quarterback?
That's it.
Like Mahomes, that can elevate everything for his club?
That's it. You hit it. So I'm not convinced Zach Taylor is going to match wits with Andy Reid.
No.
So that puts them at a very big disadvantage. No, I don't think Taylor's a bad coach, but Andy Reid's an all-time coach. But the Chiefs have the weapons, assuming they franchise tag T. Higgins. They have the weapons, and they have a good defense. I'm talking about the Bengals. I'm sorry. They have the weapons, They have the defense, and they have the one quarterback who's proven he's not going to back down to Patrick Mahomes. They have the guy. He actually might have more swagger than Patrick Mahomes. Like he actually looks at himself and thinks, I'm better than Patrick Mahomes. And I think if you gave truth serum to these other guys, they know they're not better than him. And Burrow's the guy who's beat him, and so therefore I think he beat him 3 times in a row, actually. So there's no reason he should not have confidence. But you're right. His knock is he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and somehow, again, one of the 9 million most impressive things about Patrick Mahomes is even when he's not healthy, he plays and plays well.
Yeah. I mean, last year with that high ankle injury, still wins the Super Bowl. And the Bengals, $65 million in cap space. So they're going to be able to improve quite a bit and help out Joe Burrow there. When we look at the rest of the league, we saw what happened with Kyle Shanahan. Of course, he says goodbye to his defensive coordinator. A lot of people think that was kind of a scapegoat. We see that happen all the time. He was a coach they hired from outside the family, so to speak, outside the system. When you look at San Francisco and you look at the talent, because to me that roster was the deepest in the NFL all season long, even when they were injured. What's next for them? I mean, is it just one of those situations where got to get over that mental hump, got to be able to get into the big game and win it?
They're in danger of becoming the Bills. Like, they're not, they haven't lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, but they've lost, 2 Super Bowls and 2 conference championship games in a row. They're in danger of being looked at as similar to the Bills, like a great team that was loaded with Pro Bowlers. How many top 5 guys at their position do they have? Just off the top of your head. Running back, top 5 guy. Fullback, top 5 guy. Left tackle, top 5 guy. Defensive end, top 5 guy. Middle linebacker, top 5 guy. Cornerback, top 5 guy. I mean, it's almost a miracle that they're like defying the salary cap. Wide receiver, top 10 guy. They're defying the salary cap with this loaded team, and they can't get over the hump. And that's kind of how you remember the Jim Kelly, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas Bills. And I think that's what they're in danger of being remembered as if they don't win one here in the next. How long can they keep this together? Tight end, top 5 guy. Next 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. No, I think that window is going to close, to your point, because eventually all that deferred money catches up with you. We've seen that happen time and time again in the NFL. Looking at the league, Ryan, across the kind of horizon here, another great year. We saw the Super Bowl, the most watched event in history, right? So the NFL machine, based there in New York where you're at, continues to churn. There's problems, though. We have issues with, of course, officiating. We see that pop up. But I always tell people, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, please. I always tell people, you can complain all you want about officiating. Coaches complain, people can complain about it. But if you keep watching and the ratings go up, do you think they're really going to address it and think it's a big issue? Are you there with me? Do you think the NFL really thinks that their officiating needs some sort of shakeup?
I go to the Goodell press conference every year at the Super Bowl, and every year he says the same thing, which is there's room for improvement, but our officials do a great job 99% of the time. Look, I don't know how many NFL fans or other sports fans, but like the day after the NFL, players are ported to Major League Baseball spring training. And so now for the next 8 months, all I'm going to hear is about, especially New York, umpires, where baseball is maybe king, robotic umpires and strike zones. And so like no sport is happy with the officiating, right? And like no. If they do switch to AI or robots or whatever, nobody's going to be happy with them because, you got to have some sort of, human element. You got to understand the circumstance. It can't just be so by the book. No one's ever happy. Do I think the officiating is a problem? I do. The obvious solution to me would be to make the NFL officials full-time employees and not, accountants and lawyers who, dabble in officiating. But I don't know that necessarily that the the problem is time. You might be like coming up with a solution that doesn't fix the problem. It's not like I don't think these guys are studying the rule book. I just think technology is to a point where we can hyper focus at home, and the human eye is not that. So unless you're going to get a bunch of like laser surgeons out there, I don't know how you fix that. But I guess the obvious solution, just cosmetically, would be let's hire them full time so we can at least show you the reason that they're not getting this thing isn't because they're not full-time employees or lack of time or commitment or whatever.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we saw from the XFL, USFL, kind of what they were dabbling in, is that sky judge position. Because I'll tell you why. I think we live in a time where, you know, people glom on to conspiracy theories all the time. I mean, you see all this scripted NFL stuff that's out there. If you had that sky judge who gives you, and the fan can hear what the determination is and why they're determining that was a catch or not a catch, at least you give transparency to it. I think that might be a little easy one. And I agree with you on full time. Look, make them full time. With as much money as the NFL makes, there's no reason why the officiating can't be full time, so that those men and women can focus on their jobs and be able to do that full time without having to worry about it. So it'll be interesting.
I can't say I watched a lot of XFL or UFL or what, but I have heard the sky judge argument before. And I mean, I'm basically a person who believes like, just try something new. Like this doesn't seem to be satisfying people. Just try something new and let's see if that works. Kind of like the kickoff rule. It was a 1 year or the, what was the rule that was off? The pass interference rule, where that was
pass interference.
Try it for a year and let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Nothing wrong with admitting that you tried something that didn't work. So we'll see. When you look at the league wide too, as far as things are going on, you know, we had last year in the offseason, the running back market gets depressed. Right there in New York was Saquon Barkley, of course. I cover the Raiders, too. I have a Raiders show as well separately. And, of course, Josh Jacobs was part of that. When you look at some of the things coming up on the horizon and those running backs, those three guys are now going to be free agents this year. What do you look at and say, you know what, this is market that's coming up? Like, I look at linebackers, too. Linebackers, remember, I mean, Lawrence Taylor, those days, that's how old I am. That's when I grew up. And those were premium positions, no longer. When you look at that and you look at the league, what do you think? What do you see this offseason with free agency and what we might see as far as positions that are in demand and positions that aren't?
Well, the safety market used to not be in demand. As far back as I was talking to 49ers GM John Lynch at the Super Bowl and asking him about the running back position and how they're kind of defying it by having McCaffrey. And he said he used to face that as a player where people were like, oh, safeties aren't that valuable. And he's obviously a Hall of Famer. And he believed his rule was like, well, make yourself irreplaceable. So that's kind of what running backs have to do. And what does that mean? That means being a pass catcher and a three down back, a pass catcher, a running back, and a pass blocker. You're talking to maybe of all the sports writers in America, the only one or the one who most thinks that the running back market devaluation is crap. It's probably like 80% of my Twitter persona is ripping the ripping the running back market. I'll never understand how you can look at a running back and say, I'm going to give him the ball in the biggest situation. Look at the Colts, right? They took Jonathan Taylor out. They threw the ball to the guy who had 3 catches. He dropped it. They lost. They didn't make the playoffs. So what in the biggest situation of the season, I'm going to give the ball to my running back on a run, a pass, whatever. And this doesn't apply to the Mahomes or the Bradys or the Burrows. Like, if you have that quarterback, of course you're going to keep the ball in your quarterback's hands. But there's 27 other teams that need to be built without those quarterbacks. And if you're the Giants, Saquon Barkley isn't just your running back. He's your best offensive player. If you are maybe not the Raiders because they have Devontae Adams, but the pre-Devontae Adams Raiders, Josh Jacobs is your best player. He's not just a running back. So, look, the running back market is probably not going to be strong again because there's a supply and demand thing. There's probably 10 of them out there this year that are quality players. Jacobs, Pollard, Aaron Jones, I think, is a free agent, Saquon. So they'll probably get squeezed a little bit on supply and demand, but I honestly, I don't understand. I don't understand how you have a guy who accounts for 33% of your offense or something like that, and you say, that's where I'm going to cut corners on the salary cap. The guy who has the ball in his hands or other than the quarterback, the guy who makes the most plays for us. That's the guy I'm going to try to, instead of paying him $12 million, I'm going to have a rotation of three $880,000 players. It's fine if you have a great quarterback. If you don't, I think you're really playing with fire.
Yeah, it's a great point. I know that, and that's the situation. It's interesting how that all works out. And then I think these guys as well, they look at the deal that the players union made for them, and we know that there's positives and negatives with the players union, and sometimes it doesn't seem right for some of them. So we'll see how it works out.